All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Maddie's Fun Community Conversations. My name is Christina Lee. I am the founder of Stella Pharma Strategies, and I am here with my wonderful co-host today, Miguel, if you don't mind doing a brief intro.
Thank you, Christina. My name is Miguel Ralas, and I'm the Community Resource Manager at Pasadena Humane Society.
We're so excited to be here. And as always, we like to start our sessions with a question of the day. So my question today, our question is, share an experience when you prioritize the human that was attached to the animal, and that resulted in a positive outcome for the animal. And I will put that in the chat. So an experience where you prioritize the human and that resulted in a positive outcome for the animal. Miguel, do you have one that you can share with the group?
Thank you, Christina. I do have an example I can share with the group, or I have a story. This was from a few years ago when I was working out of one of the county shelters, and there was a woman who came in and she was just kind of like hell-bent on surrendering her German Shepherd. Um, she was just kind of like walking in real confident about it. And then we started talking to her, it was me and a group of other folks that were doing shelter intervention. And it turned out that the dog had dug up her yard to a house that she just moved into. And she was really upset about it. So we ended up talking for, I can't say that it was more than like 10 minutes. And it turns out that they had just bought that house and it had been a really long road to getting a house. And so when this dog came in and tore up her backyard, it was a really quick reaction to be like, well, no, you can't do this. This was more than just like a behavior thing he did suddenly. It was like for her years of work that her and her family had did to get to this place. And then, that was kind of her reaction. But after 10 minutes of talking, which 10 minutes sounds like a long time when somebody's coming in for something like a surrender, but it really wasn't. And she was just kind of like, I needed to calm down and now I can go back and we can work on some different behavior things. But just taking that time and giving folks space to talk about or feel whatever they're feeling to still be able to prevent that surrender from happening.
Thank you for sharing that, Miguel. And we all know that German Shepherds do not do well in the shelter, so it's probably a really good outcome for that dog. I saw Jean shared trusting someone who was lower income that we could help her find needed resources for a cat. Ooh, there's some good stories in the chat if you guys want to take a look at those. One from Lucy. That's awesome. From Aaron.
Yeah, the one that we had we had a Banfield clinic posted up at our outside of one of our thrift store locations, and the woman was just waiting in line patiently and grooming her poodle. She had a really gorgeous, like, standard poodle and a Rottie who probably had some vets would consider the body score might need a couple extra steps and setups, but she loved the heck out of those dogs, and she had gotten laid off due to COVID from the school system, and she was living out of the U-Haul that she was renting, and so she couldn't get ahead, catch up to get into housing and stuff. So yeah, one of the unhoused community support agencies that we partner with, we both volunteered for a rescue organization at one point, who's the founder of that organization. So we just kind of work together sometimes for things like this. And so, yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure everyone will learn more today during today's presentation about the importance of those relationships that you make with human services as well. So loving these stories in the chat. If you have one, please continue to share, and they will be in the forum later on, the Maddie's Fun Community Forum, which we will share a link to the recording as well. All right, Miguel, I'll pass it on to you.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you all for sharing. So we'll move on to national updates. Feel free to post them in the chat, or if you have a national update, go ahead and unmute. No out loud national updates. All right, well, feel free to post them in the chat, and I will pass it over to Kelly with our April grant award announcements.
Hey, thanks, Miguel. Hey, everyone. I'm Kelly Clarity. I am the grants manager at Maddie's Fund, and I'm excited to announce our April winners. So let me share my screen. All right. Miguel, can you give me a thumbs up if you can see this, since you're the top person on my...
I can see it. It's
Okay, awesome.
not in presenter mode, but I can see it.
Correct. Okay, cool. So here we go, our April 2025 prize winners. For our weekly community conversations, that is the call you are watching. This month we have one winner of $5,000, and that is Jean Harmon of the Cat Sanctuary in Eugene, Oregon. Congratulations, Jean. Then we have our Maddie's Pet Forum monthly giveaway, and that's $3,000. And that is Monica Benyon of Clouder 9 Ranch in Buell, Idaho. So congratulations, Monica. And then we have our Maddie's Fund 30th anniversary $1,000 Cuddly prize pack giveaway. And that winner is LaTanya Sassy Walker of Sassy Cats in Brooklyn, New York. So congratulations, LaTanya Sassy Walker. And big congratulations to everyone, to all of our winners. And I would like to ask if any of our winners are on the call and you want to unmute real fast and say hello.
I'm here, Jean Harmon.
Oh, hi, Jean.
Hi. Thank you so very much. I love this program, and wow, we're having problems that are normal problems, but there are problems, and part of it is financial. So thank you all, and thank the participants, and forever thank you, Maddie's Fund.
Oh, well, thank you so much for everything you're doing, Jean. We appreciate it. Do we have any other winners online?
Monica's here.
Monica.
Hi, everybody. Just gonna probably burst into tears, but this has meant so much to us. We are in a very rural community in southern Idaho that has very limited access to resources, veterinary care, spay and neuter programs. So Clouder 9 started back in September of 23. And we have been doing something different. We aren't really necessarily an intake, but we help with emergency crisis. We actually were the first to start FIP treatment in January of 2024 with some local rescues. So these funds that we have received from Maddie's Fund will help us to stay stocked in our emergency FIP startup meds. Right now, we still have about 6 kitties that we are doing consulting with in person. So we really get to prioritize the people and work with them personally and directly. And then we also get to keep funding low cost and subsidized spay and neuter programs. So this has really given us a boost really going into spring. So thank you so much.
Oh, that's so awesome. Thank you for all that you're doing, and keep it up. All Well, I guess
I think
Miguel.
Sassy's on the call too.
See, are you here?
Sassy? Oh, maybe not. She messaged me, but
All right. Well, Sassy, if you're here, you can say something in the chat.
thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Kelly, and congratulations to all the winners. So I will go ahead and not take up too much time because I'm sure they got their own introductions, but thank you so much, Diana and Lucy. I'll hand it over to you both.
All right. So yeah, I think we're in presenter mode, and I always try to not get nervous when I'm talking on these things. I just remember I'm just gonna talk to all your note takers and try not to cuss on a lot of the summaries that you guys get emailed to you. Go ahead and share my screen, and hopefully it doesn't freeze. Don't look at my inbox, and there it is. Okay. All right. So yeah, thank you so much for Christina and Miguel for hosting today. Congratulations to all the fantastic winners doing all the badass work out there. And everybody who's here and doing the work and respecting all the hustle. Today we're going to do Under One Roof, how intake data can streamline human and animal services collaboration. I had the honor and privilege of doing this presentation or something similar to it. It's a condensed version with Diane during Expo. And so we were invited back. And so we're going to do that. So my name is Lucy Fernandez. I work for Austin Pets Alive. I run their intake diversion programming, or PASS, Positive Alternatives to Shelter Surrender. Some of y'all might have heard of it. It's been around since 08, I think. And so just helping people keep their pets. What we're going to talk about today, shifting from transactional to trauma-informed intake processes, collecting people-centric intake data to inform strategic decision-making. I'm going to cover a couple of case studies, and then shaping programmatic and policy goals with intake data. I promise all of this makes sense. So yeah, everybody kind of has their own specialty. We actually did this with a panel of 4 folks. Lauren and Amanda were also involved, and they're amazing at the data and policy stuff. Diana is also killing it with the programming and policy, and we'll get to all that. But yeah, so that's what we're going to be covering, sort of a high-level overview. So buckle up. It's going to be fun. Again, my name is Lucy. That's Boris. He was a long stay kitty, and it's my favorite picture. That's the day he was getting adopted after, I think, I don't know, 400 some odd days in custody with APA. So yeah, so first things first, I'm going to cover compassion and critical thinking, but not just for the animals. I know most of us are familiar with this graphic or some variation of it, the 3-day, 3-week, and 3 months rule of acclimating newly adopted pets and rescue animals into your homes. And we give all the grace and patience to new pets, but we're not so kind with the humans, right? We typically will assume the worst because we've seen the worst, right? We have some internal biases that different people are working with. And the same that you deal with in respect to animal behavior, we need to have people on the front lines that are more adept or willing to be more flexible and compassionate with the humans when they arrive or when they're engaging with our organizations. And we're going to kind of cover a little bit about how to do that. And then also understanding that sometimes we're not the right fit for this part of the work, and, and finding the right parts, people in our organizations to be that front line, to get the most intentional engagement and data and conversations with the people in order to be better for our community and also for the animals in our custody and in our care. So the first things first is always outline, learn, and share your ecosystem. A lot of our organizations and programs and ourselves, right, we're very limited to our budgets, our capacity, our like our training, right? So divide and conquer that. Look at your entire ecosystem more intentionally. Those human support agencies, those other agencies that are doing food pantries and churches and things like that, right? And look at that as part of your ecosystem. It's not just you. It's not just your organization. It's your entire ecosystem. It is within your community. And kind of looking at that at a better lens rather than just sort of, everybody has to come to the shelter last minute in crisis. And then we're dealing with, obviously playing catch up with a lot of the people in their last minute urgency. So here, this is what we use in the past program here at Austin Pets Alive. Being a rescue organization, we don't have to worry about jurisdictions. As a nonprofit, we do worry about budget. So this also helps us understand and dividing and conquering more intentionally so that we are not the only solution. I am not the only solution. I'm just very resourceful and very extroverted. So that's the superpower that I get to bring to different conversations when people show up. So trying to find within that, like learning these things, outlining, learning, and sharing, because a lot of the times we get frustrated because we're not seeing people using common sense. And you have to realize that common sense is not common, right? And so just kind of understanding that common sense isn't common in regards to on-leash reactivity. Had no idea that was a thing until 6 years ago when I started at APA. Had no idea what an FERCP was, even though I've been a crazy cat lady for my entire life. I just knew that I just took my cat to the vet. They got their vaccinations. I paid. And then, my cats were spoiled rotten for another year. Right. And so that was the routine, right? So common sense isn't common. So civilians or regular pet owners, as I lovingly call them, that have never been exposed to the wonderful world of rescue, the civilians aren't aware of these things. And we have to stop being so frustrated and short-tempered when they come to us because we are the experts. I am not a dog behaviorist. I'm not a veterinarian. However, because I work for a rescue, people always look at me for answers of what is this rash? Why does my dog do this? And I'm not going to be the one to answer it. However, I can direct them to that resource or to that support in my common sense ecosystem. So I think we just need to do a lot better in that sort of intentional guidance, listening to people rather than just shutting them out, thinking that there's a crappy owner and they don't deserve an animal ever again, and actually giving them resources to help themselves and also help their animals. And so through that, we also collaborate with over 70 agencies in Central Texas, where all of this common sense is shared as well. So hospice agencies, like I said, churches and food pantries, those types of things, working within those ecosystems to share that common sense. Because a lot of the times, the director of food pantry or church has an animal, doesn't even have it microchipped, has no idea what a microchip is, right? So just kind of sharing that information. Making it accessible. So again, I just kind of give examples of what we do here at Austin Pets Live with our past program, making that common sense common, getting that ecosystem together and having it outlined and accessible. Because we get frustrated when people are showing up and they're like, I found this animal, or I'm getting evicted tomorrow or whatever. All the information should be in black and white, and you should be sharing it with other agencies in your ecosystem, so that everybody is kind of using the same streamlined information and processes, or at least having them, be able to contact you through those agencies as well. Accessibility and quantifiability, right? So I hear a lot is that like we're doing everything and nobody cares and we have no money and we have no time, right? That's all very false. I know it feels like it, and it but we want to go ahead and get the receipts together, right? We want to go ahead and not only make it common sense common and accessible, but we also want to get the receipts on that impact, right? So we can't sit there and say, oh, we helped a dog. What was it, an own dog? Was it somebody else's dog? Was it medical? Did it need behavioral? Right. So kind of getting like a streamlined version of information and accessibility for people to go ahead and reach you. And for the love of God, if you have non-English speaking people as part of your demographic, please have everything in Spanish or available in Spanish. Shockingly, when I started off in this program, a lot of our stuff wasn't available in Spanish, and being a Texas-based rescue was absolutely appalling to me. And I see that in California, I see that in Arizona, you know what I mean? Like a lot of, and I'm like, you know, I grew up in Connecticut, so it might fly there, even though they have a high Puerto Rican and Dominican population, but still, like, you know, do better, and just making sure that we have that common sense. We can't be frustrated with people who aren't in our bubble if they don't know what you know, because you're not telling them in their native language. So yeah, creating pathways before they show up to your shelter. People are like, oh, people are lining up, but they can't keep their animal. Da, da, da. Did you tell them that there's like free puppy classes on chewing before it becomes like a, you know, a 3-year-old dog that's chewing on everything? That common sense needs to be out there. And then you also have to make it accessible for people to reach you, so that you can go ahead and discuss, you know, how to keep their pet, help them with rehoming, help them with, you know, a pet deposit, help those types of things. So the form that we use is through Dubert, and I'll kind of cover a little bit of that. Again, this is a very sped up version of the Expo presentation, so bear with me. Yeah, stay objective and non-reactive. I know that's really tricky in animal rescue because we are a very reactive industry. We wait until the animals come into our custody, and then we're like, okay, great. Now we have to like medically care for it. We have to do a behavior evaluation. We have to find foster placement for it. And, you know, being proactive is kind of what we're trying to kind of guide people through here. The proactive nature of it saves you a lot, weeks, if not months, if not years of care and all that stuff. Help the person instead of just, you know, helping the pet. Can foundationally more systemically help the situation. And conversation instead of interrogation. We are a judgy as hell, biased group of folks. So we need to be doing better. And again, this part of it, the front of house instead of back of house, isn't for everyone. And then there's the Dubert companion case management, and this is where we kind of quantify from that form that we showed. You know, how many dogs, how many cats, what zip codes and all that stuff, right? So you can be more intentional and granular about what communities and what demographics you're actually impacting, so that you can make like more pragmatic and programmatic changes. Training, learning, and more. I'm going to go ahead and we're going to download this PDF and put it in the Maddie's community conversation chat after this. So we'll have all the links and everything like that. But these are invaluable tools and learning systems for, you know, for kind of getting to that. Okay, I don't hate people. I just need to like learn how to like and respect them and be patient with them a little bit more. And then if you have people that are social extroverts and compassionate, getting them trained up in these types of things are really, really wonderful. And if you haven't read it yet, Rethinking Rescue is my newest obsession of a book. So get into it. And then the 4 agreements are like my daily mantra of staying sane, sober, and hustling. And then this is going to be a lot of the data sort of coverage stuff and the why the data matters. So, you know, we kind of cover, like I said, the sort of conversation instead of interrogation sort of format. And now it's like, okay, now you get the data. Now, why is that so important? What do you do with that? Right. And so, you know, trying to figure out, okay, what is the community members in crisis, trying to develop programs and resources to actually meet needs, data analysis, and data collection on pet support. A lot of the times people are like, nobody cares about their animals. Everybody got their COVID puppies and now they're sick of them. So now they're at my shelter. I hear that all the time. I see it on the community forums 1,000,001 times. It's absolutely false. Are there people that are, you know, letting their animals go sort of recklessly? Yeah. But why? And we're not asking why, and we're not having conversations as to why. And I'd like to think, I don't know the data on this part, but there's a huge difference in not knowing and not caring. And I think a lot of the times we assume that nobody cares, nobody gives a shit about their animals or whatever. And it's actually, they don't know what they don't know about. Oh, I don't know if I qualify for an ESA. Oh, I don't know, you know, what are the, you know, behavior training sort of situations. I can't afford behavior training as a civilian with an income. I don't know, you know. So those types of things, those common sense things, a lot of the times it's like basic medical care, right? Everybody's spay, neuter, vaccinate, microchip. Absolutely, please. So I don't have a job. I want to work till I'm unemployed on that. So I totally respect that. However, if you're not telling people, oh, hey, there's this clinic that's coming up. Oh, hey, I'll help you transport your dog to the appointment. You know, those types of things, those mutual aid, like helping people with their pets can foundationally help a lot of the problems that we're seeing with that sort of proactive helping the people with their pets. And asking questions instead of assuming the worst is how we can get there. Reasons for intake. I think that there's like 2,300 shelters and rescues in Texas alone. So I imagine nationally that's really, really insane. So a lot of us have different intake ways of like quantifying stuff. And a lot of the times we get, there's, tens of thousands of different reasons for intake, right? So, Human Animal Support Services went ahead and got together with a bunch of different shelters and rescues to kind of like get the word cloud of why. And a lot of it's general. Too many animals, aggression serious, insurance restrictions, doesn't like children. So there's no like, one reason or any of that kind of stuff or, single way for all of us to quantify these things. So that makes it really, really difficult to try to figure out, okay, well, what are the problems? How can we solve for them? How can we plan to make it better? And, a lot of the times with the traditional intake, there's underlying things like the complex human circumstances. Humans are rarely black and white, same with animals. So how are we better, like more intentionally kind of getting that information to make actual changes? We probably all had this conversation or some variation of it, sometimes with cussing, sometimes without. Here to surrender my dog. Why are you giving them up? He's really hyper. My girlfriend gets home, they jumps on us. Sorry to hear that. Would you like to have a dog training program where you can get some assistance? No, I'm going to give them up to you regardless. Taking care of a baby would just be too much. And so these are all the different reasons as to why. It's not just like, oh, okay, the person doesn't like their animal. They don't give a rat's ass about their animal. It's like, the behavior, there's a life change behavior, no time for pets, and it's too much responsibility. So just kind of understanding that, again, it is way more complex than we're giving it credit for, the same way that, with dogs, in behavior, you're looking at like trigger stacking, there's resource guarding, there's all these different things, but we're not able to give that kind of grace and critical thinking to the humans and the family dynamics. And we need to do better there. And so that can go ahead and tell us a whole bunch about the unmet community needs. So there was a study that Human Animal Support Services, again, Haas, they went ahead and did with a bunch of different shelters, and they captured the owner's why. And so that they can go ahead and develop not only like how, pathways for the person to keep their animal or keep it out of the shelter, but then also planning for future programming. I'm not going to go through the whole intake reasons list. Again, this deck will be available for afterwards. But again, there's just so many different layers as to like behavior, medical, that kind of thing, access to care. And these are the data points for some of the participating shelters from the survey. Just kind of covering a little bit, like I said, first point of contact, how they engage with your website. If you don't have your information and all your common sense and crap on your website, then it doesn't matter. A lot of people will get confused and you are the pound. They're going to look at you, the Google, where's the pound? Where is it located? I'm going to bring my animal there. And you should have something along the lines of, hey, here's some pet help first before you just show up thinking, okay, that kind of thing. So we want to go ahead and be more proactive in the first point of contact rather than the point of intake, which means somebody's angry with a leash dog in your parking lot, right? And so in order to kind of help, you're not going to stop it. However, you can minimize it, right? You can lessen it. And again, being more proactive through having all of your information and resources in your ecosystem outlined. First point of contact, again, we'll have all this on there, but routine wellness is a lot of the times the first reason for it, unable to fill pets' mental, emotional needs, unrelated to finances. Sometimes it's with like training. Pet food is a big one, can't afford pet fees, pet rent, or ongoing fees, and owner's health. Now, if you think about it, it's a lot cheaper. I think it's like $16 a day, $13 a day to keep an animal and care for them on site in the shelter every single day. So if you can go ahead and help somebody with like some medical or some, pet rent or pet deposits or, pet food and stuff, then that can go ahead and save you a lot of money on the end. And I'm going to skip through a bunch of these. I know I am way over time, but yeah, just be more proactive. You want to go ahead and also look at the different the housing issues. A lot of people are getting evicted, and guess what happens when people get evicted because of housing insecurity? Animals also have no place to go. So also taking those things into consideration, and Diana is going to go ahead and hop in and talk about her amazing expertise and her organization's badass work in that space. So let me skip through all that. Spread the word, make common sense common, and then there's a link for that. So take it away, Diana. Thank you so much, y'all.
Thank you, Lucy. That was awesome. Right, and as Lucy mentioned, housing is at the intersection of so many other problems, right? So when we think about, you know, and we're based in Los Angeles, so we're Heart LA Housing Equity Advocacy Resource Team. We provide free legal services to people that are having housing instability due to their pets. And when we start talking to people, we're like, okay, housing isn't just this like general bubble, right? It's like a bunch of little things kind of come up into one. Are people experiencing housing insecurity because, right, they're behind on rent? That's a really big one right now. We know the rents are way too high. Are people experiencing housing insecurity because of a domestic violence incident, right? I know in Wisconsin, a big part of eviction is, you know, people that are calling the police because of domestic violence. And those repeated calls lead to eviction for single women and their children that are disproportionately the people that are impacted the most from evictions. Or is it people that have been recently incarcerated, right? Maybe they were incarcerated and they came back and there's a big old eviction notice, right? Because they just really physically weren't home, and maybe their animals were picked up as well, right? So there are so many other reasons around why housing is such a big part of these problems. So that's why we exist, right? So our founder was a housing attorney, and she was volunteering at a local shelter and realized that a lot of people were coming in because of housing problems. Where she was able to just quickly, you know, talk to them, be like, hi, like, how's it going? Like, why are you surrendering today? And if the reason was housing for any reason, we'd get a little deeper, be like, okay, so like, what's going on? Like, tell me a little bit more. And as people start talking, we're able to kind of pin down, okay, is this something we can help with as far as like, do you know your rights? Are you able to enforce those rights? And then to what extent is it helpful for a legal agency like ourselves to step in and kind of tell the landlord to back off, right? So a big part of what we do is that direct legal service, but we also share community-based resources at all intersections of housing. And we'll get a little bit more into it. Next slide, please, Lucy. Excellent. Okay. And, you know, we've talked about a lot of challenges, and I'm just going to throw a few more out at you. This is one of the most impacted shelters in Los Angeles. These are numbers taken from the South LA shelter. Right. So we know that it costs $3,400 to shelter just one dog. And that's one dog that never gets sick or needs any medical attention for 5 months. The average length of stay is about 5 months. 59% of dogs stay in the shelter more than 1 month, right? So we know what the challenge is at the shelter level. Let's talk about the housing challenges on where the people are at, right? So Heart was part of a study with CARE, the Paw Mission, Downtown Dog Rescue, Loving Paws, and Communities for a Better Environment. And we kind of were able to talk to our clients, our membership, and ask these questions, right? What are the most like prevalent housing challenges you're encountering? Lack of pet-friendly housing, to no surprise, was a huge one. No pet policies, landlords requiring proof of income or their other financial requirements to be able to access housing, pet rent and pet deposits as being barriers, right? So as in our little housing world, these are the things that we see the most at the intersection. So with this understanding, right, the understanding on the shelter end and the understanding on the housing end, we were able to develop a program to work directly with the shelter, and that'll be on the next slide. We can talk through a little bit of what our intake, diversion, and adoption counseling services look like for housing. The whole objective of this program was to reduce the number of owner surrenders due to housing-related issues, by doing just that, right? What I talked about our founder was doing. We're able to kind of step in when people are making that decision of whether or not to, or have made that decision to surrender their pet. And if it is housing related, trying to figure out if there's a way to stop that. And this was a really lovely grant that we were able to come into thanks to PetSmart Charities, Cal for All Animals, and Best Friends. So with this money, we were able to prevent surrenders, but I think one of the biggest things that stands out to me about these charts and these graphs, and we know, we're not going to remember numbers in charts and graphs, but what I do really want people to remember in this pie chart over here is that the number of preventable surrenders of the people that went to surrender their pets to the shelter that we spoke to, 70% of them didn't have a notice. 70% of them did not have a notice to evict. They were either verbally harassed, or maybe they were sent numerous text messages. They were just told that you can't live here, neither can your pet, or you have to choose between yourself or your pet to continue living here. And about 30% did have notices. We did see those 3 notices. So that's telling us a lot of the harassment that's happening, right? That's the intake data that we're seeing, that there are a lot of people are being harassed, that a lot of housing providers aren't doing their due diligence and going through with a formal process. So all in all, we were able to help 54 families keep 57 dogs and 194 cats together and out of the shelter. For a lot of these families, it wasn't just like a one and done either. It wasn't like a hi, hello, you're here to surrender because of housing, no notice, go home. It was a lot more than that, right? It was a lot of follow-up. For some clients, we were with them several months until they were able to find stable housing. And the way we were able to do all this work, well, we were like, okay, well, where do people show up the most, right? So we were able to participate in monthly in-person community engagement events during the time that the shelter hosted the food pantry events. We also had a hotline. So, right, for the times that we weren't there, people were able to just call in, let us know what was happening, and we'd be able to get to them as soon as possible. And we're looking at this chart over here, just more reasons, right, for surrender. And no, you're all good. Let's jump. Let's keep it going. Thanks, Lucy. So for programming, I talked about that very same thing, right? Somebody comes in, they're like, I need to surrender because of housing or whatever it is. And we're like, okay, well, the first question is, did you get a notice, right? There is no notice, you can go ahead and go home. But it's a lot more complicated than that, right? It's not that easy. So I want to share a story about these 2 lovely dogs over there in the corner. I was at one of these community events, and a man came up to me, and he was kind of just asking for directions, like where can I go surrender my pet? And I was like, oh, it's over there, but like, tell me a little bit about what's going on. And so he mentioned that his wife was in the car with their 2 dogs, crying because their landlord had told them that they were not able to stay with their pets. And I was like, okay, well, what's been going on? Like, what exactly did they tell you? They're like, well, there's a lot of harassment going on. Sometimes when we're not home, they'll leave the gate open, and we're really afraid of them getting hurt. But what she also told us is that if we keep them, then we'll be evicted, right? And we truly can't afford to do that. So we were able to keep in touch with them. We learned that they were living in illegally rented units. So the person that they said was their landlord was not actually their landlord, but illegally subletting to them. The actual landlord had no idea that there are other people being subletted to. So we were able to help out, not just with preventing the surrender, but we're able to help secure crates for them, maybe for times that they were out street vending and not able to be at home, to protect their pets and make sure that they weren't let out into the street because of the person that was harassing them. We were able to help them secure housing, right? Housing that was sustainable, housing that was not living on the second floor of a carniceria, being illegally subletted to. So that was for me like one of the greatest success stories of this program, where we were able to follow this family from, you know, making that decision that they thought they had to make to these are your rights. Let's help you enforce them. And then let's help you get housing where you don't have to carry the weight of this every day with you. So on top of the direct legal assistance that we provided, we also provided technical assistance, which is just a fancy word for like resource sharing, right? So we don't provide direct services for animal well-being, but we can connect you to those resources, right? So if you need resources for spay, neuter, TNR, low-cost vet, if you need a crate, right? Like for this case, we're able to look up where you live and what entity or what organization is providing those services. Yeah, and so we go on to the next slide, please. Okay, yeah, and I've talked a lot about, and I will drill this over and over and over again. If there is no notice, there is no formal eviction, right? But that doesn't mean that's it. The person goes home. It's really important to be able to connect that person with their local legal aid organization, because chances are they're just going to get harassed all over again, right? And we've seen some of the most nefarious housing providers will prey on people that don't know their rights or know their rights but are afraid to enforce them. So it's really, really, really important for people to have a community of people that they'll be supported. So whether that's a legal aid organization, a tenants union, we'll get more into that. It's not just a one and done, that they still need support, right? But let's say there is a notice. There's a 3-day notice, however many days, there's a notice. The notice says that if they do not do X, Y, Z, then they will be evicted. So if we're talking about housing issues, one of the more common ones we see, non-payment of rent, moving, behavioral issues. We do a lot of resource mapping. And it is effort, like it is work, but it's incredibly important, right? I think I saw a question in the chat that was like, how do I connect with partners? For us, truly, it's a lot of word of mouth. It's a lot of Googling. I know Lucy mentioned like there are churches, there are, you know, food pantries, there are, you'd be surprised by the number of organizations that are providing these resources that exist. So for us, creating an internal resource map to understand who are the friendlies in our community, what services do they provide, not only what services they provide for us specifically in Los Angeles. There are so many different zip codes and boundaries between the city and the county that it's important to understand the service area for these organizations too, right? So understanding those resources, who your local aid organizations are, and are there behaviorists in your community that can provide support, right? We see a lot of alleged dog bite cases that we're able to mitigate risk, right? And talk to the landlord directly. And it's really, really important when there's a behaviorist or somebody that can vouch for the dog in the situations. When it comes to assistance animals, and when I mean assistance animals, I'm talking about emotional support animals or service animals that need training that alleviates a symptom of a person's disability. So for assistance animals, they're in a very, very different, they're a very different case because they're not considered pets. They're assistance animals, right? So when people have issues regarding breed restrictions, no pet policies, weight restrictions, and size restrictions, if the animal is providing the person with relief or a symptom of their disability, they're assistance animals. So if we see any of these pop up, the questions to ask are, one, do you receive disability benefits? Because if you do, if the government says they recognize you as a person with a disability, you do not need a letter from a doctor or anything. That is your letter. You can self-certify. You can self-certify your assistance animal. And all of these barriers, all of these policies will not impact you, right? So if they don't receive disability benefits, do they have a medical provider? An issue that's coming up for us a lot too, that's, you know, I could talk about this all day, but we don't have the time for that. But a lot of medical providers are refusing to write those ESA letters. which is difficult for us, but it also encourages us to find different avenues for people that can write those letters. So let's say you don't have a medical provider, right? A lot of people that are unhoused may not have a medical provider. But do they see a social worker, a counselor? Even if you are a person at a shelter who, maybe you see the same person at the pet food pantry every week. And they have disability, and that their companion animal, their assistance animal provides a benefit to them, that they're helping them live their life, then you could write that letter, right? All the law says is that you have to be a reliable third party. The law does not say that you need to be a counselor, that you need to be a doctor or licensed in any way. You just need to be a reliable third party. And that's it, right? You're not vouching for the pet, you're vouching for the person. So that's kind of the process that we take when we're talking to people. And if we're hopping over to the next slide. So going back to this program that I talked about, some of the results and key takeaways, we were able to really emphasize community engagement, meet people where they were at, connect them with the resources they need. And on the shelter end, we try to be as supportive as possible, right? Because we know that I'm throwing a lot out at you, right? And housing laws are, they can vary depending on where you live. But ultimately, we don't want to make anyone's jobs more difficult. We just want to be able to equip you with like the very quick ways to prevent a surrender. So we put together a resource guide that was specifically tailored to that shelter, that was specifically tailored to the local laws. We also put together some half-sheet pages translated in English and Spanish that people could put in adoption packets or just take while they're at the shelter to know what their rights are and what services are available. So all in all, we were able to identify intervention points so we could continue doing this work and had a better understanding of what the shelter needed support with as well. Next slide. Okay, and so we've got a few more problems here, right? Maybe not. So data is incredibly important. The intake process is incredibly important, but what ultimately at the end of the day will be the most important is talking to your community, hearing it from them, understanding what solutions they're looking for, what hardships they're having. So in the same study that I talked about, that was sponsored by Michael Found Animals and PetSmart Charities. We surveyed a number of community members in Los Angeles, and we asked some questions, right, about what the more prominent challenges they were encountering in housing. And these are just some solutions that they provided, right? So being more understanding about a person's financial situation, sharing information and resources regarding their needs. So outside of housing, is that food, mental health resources, language services, right? Like Lucy said this, it's so important to make sure that you have all of your materials translated not just through Google Translate, translated in a way that people will actually understand. And offering options for treatment, engaging with communities beyond their services. So is that outside of the shelter? Is it at community events? Is that at a park? 64% of respondents were not aware of pet-friendly interim housing options in case of a crisis. We're talking about a crisis. Earlier in January of this year, LA was on fire, right? And LA is on fire a lot, but LA was really on fire. And this was a moment where everybody it was a very reactive approach to housing. Whereas there are a lot of ways we could have been more proactive about it. But it's a good question to ask yourselves, right? Are you aware in your own community of local pet-friendly interim housing options, right? And if you're not, then it might be a good idea to do that research, even connect with them. 58% of respondents felt that having access to information would have been really helpful, right? So exactly what we're saying. What are the laws? What do the laws say? What's legal and what isn't? And what are their rights? And so, yeah, so next slide's great. And in talking about people's rights, policies are important, right? During the pandemic, we had a really strong law in Los Angeles that prevented evictions for about like a year or two. for any quote unquote unauthorized pets and people. So if people had to move in together because of the pandemic, or people, adopted pets, there were laws that prevented eviction for breaking the rules of the lease, right? That was great, but a law is only effective if it can be enforced. And a lot of landlords, again, took advantage of people not knowing their rights or being afraid to enforce them. So while absolutely we need more pet inclusive policies, but that's not the end there. We need to be able to enforce them. We need to make sure that our community is able to know how to enforce them. Everyone has their own power, right? Empowerment is a word that I struggle with because we all have our own power, but it is truly important for us to be able to break down what the law says, because we know the law is not meant for everybody to interpret. It's written in a very, very specific way for only certain people to understand. So to the extent that we can break it down within community, share these resources with community, right? I mentioned tenants unions as a really excellent support base for people that are in crisis when it comes to housing, their local legal aid. Us at Heart, we provide trainings for shelter animal staff to be able to kind of break down what the local laws are in your communities. And yeah, I think I might be over time as well, but I think, yeah, oops, so sorry. Thank you for listening. And I think we're open for questions.
Unfortunately, we are at time, so we don't have time for questions. But thank you very much, Diana and Lucy, and everyone. There were some good questions in the chat, so I do encourage everyone to go to the forum where Diana and Lucy will spend a little of time this week answering your questions. And I think that was really great information, you two. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much for having us. And yeah, please reach out and we'll be in the community conversation thing afterwards. Looking forward to chatting with some of y'all. And thanks for everybody's badassery out there.
Right back at you. Bye.